Hi, my name's Daryl, and I'm here today talking to Chuck Phillips. He's with Aliner, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about their brand new product, the Ascape AMP. And they just introduced it at the Florida, I guess, Super Show, RV show, and they were displaying it. And so I'm kind of interested in, kind of what changes are made to this product over the regular Ascape. And I really haven't paid all that much attention to the Ascape. And so I'm also interested in knowing, a little bit about the target demographic of the Ascape versus kind of the regular, A-frame A-liner. Yeah, let's just start with that. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Chuck, and let's get started.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Chuck Phillips. I'm one of the territory managers for A-Liner, and I've been working with A-Liner since 2006. So been with the company for a very long time, and I handle basically the Midwestern region, Northeastern US, and Eastern Canada. So my RV shows lately have been in the colder parts of the country. I wasn't lucky enough to be in Tampa last week, but yeah. So I've been running around to Indianapolis and Pittsburgh, and on my way to Green Bay, Wisconsin this afternoon. So.
Oh,
Uh,
geez.
little bit different weather in my territory. But
So I guess at the RV show, what did you get a lot of folks visiting it, and what were their thoughts on the product?
yeah, so it sounds like so let's put it this way. The Ascape has been out for multiple years,
Okay.
and Ascape AMP just was introduced. Both the Ascape and A-Liner AMP were both introduced in September last year at the big dealer show in Elkhart, Indiana. So that was the first time that we got the prototypes put together and introduced them to the dealer body. So the dealers have had the access to, like, our A-liner production started, pretty much immediately following the show in September. We started building, we built A-liners through the fourth quarter and through January. So the A-liner AMP has been on dealer lots starting in October and has made its way into a couple RV shows this year. Tampa is the first retail show that an Ascape AMP has been displayed. So
Okay.
as far as I heard from those guys, the show attendance was pretty good. I think it was down a little bit from last year, but not much. And from all reports, they had great interest across the board on Ascape and A-Liner.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about the Ascape product and what's kind of like the demographic
Mhm.
difference between, the standard, kind of pop-up
Yep.
frame trailer and the Ascape. And so um can you walk us through that a little bit on who might be interested in that product and what are some of the advantages as well as maybe the disadvantages of the Ascape versus the A-frame?
Yeah. So demographically, they're really relatively similar because, the Ascape footprint is actually a smaller trailer in general than most of the A-liners. It'd
Okay.
be most comparably sized to like a Ranger 10 or a Scout Light. So our
Okay.
two 10-foot A-liners.
Okay.
The Ascape is 6.5, well, 6.25 feet wide is the living space. If you count the wheel wells on the exterior, if you're really doing an exterior measurement, it's about 6.5 feet wide,
Okay.
which is comparable to an A-liner.
Okay.
Um, and then the living space in the Ascape is about a 10-foot living space, just like a Scout Light or a Ranger 10 would be. So
Okay.
uh, the only downside is there's, slightly smaller than your average A-liner, looking at, 12-foot and 15-foot boxes in classics or expeditions, for example. But demographically, because, A-liners tend to be couples units, they, may bring grandkids or somebody to sleep on the dinettes, but you mainly have one major rear bed, and then you've got your dinette that converts to a second sleeping area in most of the A-frames. With the Ascape, the way that it's set up, you get really one sleeping area. So it's predominantly going to be for couples or single campers. It's
Okay.
not really be built for families. So demographically, still probably more so couples and tend to skew towards the retirement side. 50 plus is who we've historically gotten the most attention from. But with younger people these days, either not having kids or waiting to have kids, we are starting to see a lot of younger buyers coming in for these smaller and lightweight products also.
Hmm.
Uh, so we're kind of getting a wider spread now than we have historically.
Okay.
And then from the product standpoint, um, the needs for the buyers tend to be different. So the A-liner people like the idea of the low profile. You can see around it, keeps your gas mileage as good as it's going to be when you're towing something with the low profile of a folding camper. Um, Again, gives you a little bit more space. But there's some people who, and then like an A-liner, could park it in your garage, for example, because of the low profile when it's folded down. The only downside of the Ascape is it with the air conditioner on top, it's 8'4". So you're
Mm,
not going to put it into your standard garage door. But really, the people who are buying the Ascape tend to have different needs. They may have had a folding camper in the past, and they just don't want to fold anything up and down anymore. Or they've got a physical liability, they got a shoulder problem where they can't push up roof panels anymore, like you need to on an A-liner. So what, weight wise and price wise, even comparing against comparable models, Ascapes come in at like 1,700 pounds. So very comparable to like a Ranger 12. So we're basically just giving people the option to have something that folds or not, but continuing to focus on the lightweight segment for the smaller tow vehicles and all that kind of stuff. But you know how camping goes, and especially smaller, lightweight camping, everything's always trade-offs, right? You're not going to have a 30-footer where you've got fireplaces and 42-inch flat screen TVs. When you're talking about 10 or 12-foot living spaces, it's always a little bit of a trade-off one way or the other.
that's interesting. Do you think the Ascape would be considered like a little more secure, as well as possibly it might handle the colder weather and maybe the warmer weather a little bit better than a standard A-frame camper, just because of the construction of it?
You know, in the end, the insulation values, the ways the walls, sidewalls are constructed and all that kind of stuff are very similar.
Okay.
So I don't think there's really any giant difference in the way that they contain air conditioning, or if you're running your furnace, how they contain heat. They're all going to be laminated, vacuum bonded panels as far as wall construction is concerned. So um, in general, it really just comes down to people's preference of wanting to either have the low profile and garageable. I mean, garageable is becoming a huge thing. When people talk about $50 to $100 a month in storage,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's an association area, garageability is a big factor for a lot of people. But some people just prefer not to have any assembly required at all, and that's where the Ascape comes in.
Hmm. So there was quite a bit of differences. Well, there's some differences between, the A-liner amp, the one on the A-frame, and the Ascape amp. And I think the big thing that kind of jumped out at me was the difference in the solar panels capacity on the Ascape versus the A-liner amp. So you had like 800 watts, two solar panels on the A-frame version. And the Ascape, I think it's like 185 watts
Yeah.
as opposed. And so, can you walk us through that, where you're just kind of limited in the footprint of the roof where you could add the solar panels? And then um, is there kind of a difference in approach in regards to boondocking and how long you could stay out with the Ascape versus the A-frame?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. The profile of the roof of the Ascape, which is very aerodynamic and sleek and by design, that only leaves us a few feet of flat roof space in the back of the trailer. And at this point, that space is occupied by your air conditioner, your vent fan over the bathroom, and the ST model in particular. But really, it's the air conditioner that takes up all that space, and then your Thule awning that also goes across the rear of the trailer, sticks up above the roof, just a couple inches. So that space was taken up, so we couldn't do the big hard panels. So we had to go with a flexible panel and put that on the front slope of the trailer, which you're definitely going to get faster recharge times out of the 800 watts of solar that are on the A-liner versus 185 on the Ascape. But the nice thing is the Ascape panel is wired right to the inside of the trailer, so you still have your ZAMP solar port on the south side, on the side of the trailer, that you could add an additional portable panel. The size would be customer's choice basically, but there is the ability to add more solar too if you wanted to, and that extends your time out in the field. So yeah, from a boondocking standpoint, it's hard. It's a subjective thing, right? Depends on how much power you're really using, what you're drawing on, how much sunlight you have, all that kind of stuff. So I would say, like, let's take the Ascape, for example, with a little bit less solar capacity, just at the 185 watts. The question really comes down to how much air conditioning are you running?
Yeah.
The AC is going to be the big draw, right? So if you're just running LED lights, your water pump, that kind of stuff, you could be out there easily for 5, 6 days, I'm sure. Now, if you start kicking that air conditioner on, if you have to run the AC a bunch, that would shorten the time that, you're going to have, obviously the battery will run down over the course of, I think probably that AC would run. Now, again, I'm not the technical guy. We could have got Tim involved to get the technical facts, but with that 185 watt panel and the 5 kilowatt battery that's in the Ascape amp, um, I would think that you could run that air conditioner for every bit of 5 to 6 hours, right around there.
Yeah.
And depending on sunlight, again, it's very variable based on cloud cover and all that stuff. But 4 to 6 hours for sure off the battery before you got to get to the recharge. And that's a nice thing about the EcoFlow system is being a 48-volt system, it's the most efficient and it also recharges very quickly.
Yeah. Interesting. Did you do some of the similar appliances on the Ascape versus the Aliner amp, the induction stovetop, on-demand water heater? And I think I noticed where on the Ascape you have a gray water tank versus the regular Aliner, which doesn't have a gray water tank. Is that right?
Yeah, so both models do get the tankless on-demand water heater now. So that's going to be standard equipment, and anything that's a Evolution equipment level, so an A-liner Evolution and above Evolution, including the AMP, A-liner, and Ascape. So tankless on-demand water heaters are in both. Right now, the induction cooktop is only in the A-liner. I talked to
Okay.
Alan this morning, our sales manager, and just to confirm it, I said, is the induction going into the amp? He said, right now they're still using a glass-covered 2-burner propane stove in there,
Yeah.
which I know we'll talk about propane here in a little bit too. But the induction, what was the third part of that? Did you ask?
The induction, oh, and I also talked about the gray water tank.
Right. So yeah, that's an anomaly in the RV industry as a whole. For whatever reason, folding campers, generally speaking, don't get great water tanks, and I don't know why that is. If you look at like a high wall pop up, and I mean a 14-foot box that's got giant side walls, and we're talking a 3,000 pound or 3,500 pound camper that's got a full bathroom in it. Occasionally, those high wall units will have a gray tank, but if you're looking at your traditional 8, 10, 12, 14, no, not 14 so much, but 8, 10, or 12-foot folding campers, they don't have gray tanks, even if they do have bathrooms in them.
Hmm.
So that's kind of just a weird thing that happens in this industry. So you just need to bring, like a portable tank. They've got the tote tanks that have wheels on them. You can
Yeah.
bring, depending on how much water usage you're actually going to do. But yeah, then it being standard equipment in travel trailers, we went with a gray tank in the Ascape. Now, let me double check that real fast because the Ascape ST, which we only build two Ascapes. There's the ST, which is the shower toilet combo, and then there's the Plus, which has just a cassette toilet. The ST for sure gets the gray tank. I'm just double checking real quick to make sure that yeah, the Plus does too. So even the amp will have it, mainly just going to be containing your sink water because you don't have the shower inside that model.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of, they're, some of those campgrounds that you go to want the fully self-contained, travel trailers. And I guess that is relatively fully contained, so you've got your cassette toilet, um, and then, you have a shower outside. I guess that's not fully self-contained, but still the
Right.
sink water goes into the gray water tank. And so you could, stay at some of those, fancy kind of campgrounds,
Yeah.
um, with your small little escape trailer.
Yeah, well, I had somebody ask me the other day about it because mainly just having a toilet in general, because they were going to go to some wineries or something that you could actually camp and stay overnight, but because it's not a campground
Yeah.
and the winery wouldn't be open at night, that you had to have a bathroom. So a tent camper or even an A-liner without a toilet in it, you wouldn't be able to stay. So another advantage to both the Ascape products is that you have a toilet in both, and obviously we've got plenty of options in A-liner to have a toilet as well. So.
Do you think the gas mileage when you said it's around 1,700 pounds, because of the teardrop shape, would it be similar in gas mileage in towing a regular A-frame that is very low profile, or would you lose a little bit?
You probably take down a couple miles per gallon just because you're taking on more frontal resistance. Depending on your tow vehicle with an A-liner, you've got most of that camper's generally in your slipstream or your aerodynamic profile as you're going down the road. So the Escape does stick up a few feet above your tow vehicle, but might knock your mileage down a couple additional miles per gallon. But as light as it is and as aerodynamic as it is, I wouldn't say that it's a major difference.
I'm kind of curious. So going back just to the regular AMP product, I'm kind
Mhm.
of curious on folks that have purchased it. What kind of are you getting some good or bad feedback on that product, and how is it kind of handling, the boondocking and being out, battery lasting?
Yeah. Yeah. So the crazy part is, again, we just introduced these at the end of September at the big dealer show. So we started building the A-liners through the fourth quarter and we've been shipping them to dealers, but then we went straight into non-peak camping season. Fourth quarter is usually our
Yeah,
slowest,
yeah.
November, December, January, or October through December, and then January here. So they're on dealers' lots and we've had them at a couple retail shows and we have retailed a few already,
Okay.
even though we've only had, what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of shows here. So we've actually got some retails already. We've got really great interest coming, via our internet web leads and all that kind of stuff. So the jury still will be out till we get to spring and summer to get some real exposure. But I can tell you that when I was in the Hershey RV show, we had pretty decent weather, and I didn't get to mess with the system. It was the first time I was exposed to the whole EcoFlow system, and the first time I was selling any of our lithium solar package because it's the first time we had done it. But with the sun that we had there, and really I ran the air conditioner pretty much full time. Now we had generators there too plugged in, but I at one point I had unplugged the generator, the shore power, and with full sunlight, that battery was going to run that air conditioner for like 12 hours. Now
Wow.
that's optimum conditions, right? I mean, there's not a cloud in the sky. It was
Sure.
85 degrees outside, so it was hot and sunny, but that battery was going to run the 9,000 BTU AC heat pump, and the refrigerator was also running. The three-way refrigerator was running, and its runtime before the battery ran out was going to be like 12 hours.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It was pretty amazing.
Hmm.
So, so far, all indications, and same thing in Indiana at the open house. That show we were not plugged in and we didn't have generators, and we had great sunlight down there at least one of the days. And same thing, we had the AC running, and projected runtime was like 12 hours. Same thing with the refrigerator was on, but yeah, again, it's going to be tough to tell how it's all about the conditions and how much air conditioning you're running is really what it's going to boil down to.
Can you talk about the delta difference between, the standard Escape, I guess the one without the shower, and the Escape AMP, and kind of what the difference in kind of retail pricing or list pricing is of those two units?
Yeah, so your MSRP, your list prices on the standard escapes are going to be right around 30,000.
Okay.
That's before freight. So again, depending on if you're close to the factory where we are in Pennsylvania, if we're all the way out west, freight numbers can vary pretty widely. But retail on the standard plus, for example, which is going to be the same build and same floor plan as the AMP, you're talking an MSRP of roughly around 30,000, where on your MSRP on the Ascape AMP is more like 49, almost 50,000. Now that's full boat retail, but
Yeah.
there's pretty good spread because that EcoFlow system. I mean, again, to go over that just so everybody remembers, or does, if for anybody who doesn't know what's in that. I mean, that provides the solar panels, the 185-watt solar panel on the Ascape, or the 800 watts of solar on the A-liner, which is the only difference in the two systems. And then from there, you got a 5 kW, 5 kilowatt hour battery. It's a 48-volt system, which is the most efficient system out there as far as efficiency of power, and not losing the power that you're generating. It's all going straight to the battery. You've got a 3,600-watt inverter, and then there's a nice converter panel in there that's got all your controls, and then a monitor panel that, once you have the system up and running, you don't ever have to touch any of it. It's just plug and play. It's a very clean wiring system. It's actually the cleanest system I've ever seen as far as wiring is concerned, which also makes it one of the safest systems out there. But the LCD panel that you can check your inputs and outputs. You can see exactly what's running on off the battery or not off the battery. and it's very, very simple and easy to use.
Is there any sort of other features that differentiate the kind of the like the regular Ascape over the Ascape AMP?
Yeah.
So is there any other differences other than the kind of the EcoFlow system?
Yeah, so we definitely upgraded everything, just like the A-liner versus the A-liner Evolution or the A-liner AMP. We went with the toy hauler style flooring versus the traditional linoleum floor that would be like in this standard AMP, you get traditional linoleum, or
Okay.
in the traditional Ascape, you get traditional linoleum, and then in the AMP, you get the toy hauler style flooring. So, no scratches, easier to clean, all that kind of stuff. Um, we went with a high density plastic cabinet in there with a aluminum structure versus a wood on wood cabinet.
Okay.
And then you got upgraded cushions as well inside the for the bed areas and the seating areas in the amp. And then they upgraded the dinette table as well. So it's a more sturdy telescoping table that operates a little bit easier than the pedestal table that was in the standard Ascape.
So you
And then
know,
like you mentioned earlier too, the on-demand water heater as
okay.
well.
Okay. So I've got this thing with twin beds.
Yeah.
Um, so the thing I like with the thing that we do with our A-liners is other than the kind of the propping up the roof and stuff like that, we have both of our beds. I've got a classic that has the permanent bed, and then my wife has the dinette, and we just keep them all set up. So we don't, we like to make it simple. So when we camp, we just don't want to have to, pull the cushions out and do all that kind of other stuff.
Right.
On that Ascape product, you've got the I guess the cushions or the galley that where they can sit across from one another. Can those also do those have enough width to be like a twin bed where you could just sleep on those, or is this really designed for you to set up that bed kind of every night?
Yeah, it really is. Again, because that trailer only being like 6.25 feet wide and about a 10-foot living space, it really is pretty much either the dinette or the bed. And I think, kind of like an A-liner and you guys, most of the time, I think you probably set it up into a bed configuration and leave it that way and eat
Yeah.
outside at a picnic table or something along those lines. But the dinette benches are not wide enough themselves for the average adult to sleep on.
Okay.
Now they kind of pull into the center. They kind of like a gaucho almost, or like a rear sofa in a classic. There's a board that you pull into the center on, and that comes from underneath both dinette benches, and that's how you can create what really becomes almost a king size bed. That's the amazing part. In a
Hmm.
10-foot trailer, the bed in that thing is 79 inches 77 by 72. So,
Okay.
70 by, well, 80 by 80 would be a true king size bed, but 77 by 72 in a 10-foot trailer. So, long story short is I have talked to people who said, well, it's just me. So maybe sometimes I'll just pull out one side of it and just sleep on one side. But for all intents and purposes, it's really meant to be put into one large sleeping area.
Okay. Okay. On the AMP product, and we kind of got into this a little bit when we did our other show. Um, you can expand past the 5 kWh battery to 10 or maybe even 15.
Yeah.
There any space anywhere in the Ascape to do something similar, or are you kind of sort of limited to that five kilowatt hour battery?
Yeah, that would be the tricky part because um, we've got so much standard equipment in this Ascape as it is.
Yeah.
Most of the bench space underneath there is taken up by either furnaces or water heaters or different appliances or
Yeah.
plumbing. So I would have to double check with the factory for sure to see in the Ascape if there's room underneath one of those benches to get a second battery in there,
Okay.
because otherwise it'd be a little bit tight there.
Okay.
The one cabinet when you come in has got your cassette toilet. The cabinet next to that is where the whole EcoFlow system, the
Yeah.
battery and the converter and all that sits. So yeah, I'd have to double check on that one to be sure. Now like you said, in the A-liner, generally speaking, underneath one of the dinette benches or underneath the rear sofa or rear mattress, that's where you would be able to store a second or third battery pretty easily. But the Ascape, I'd have to double check on that.
Would you mind if I just pull up a couple of the photos and you kind of walk us through it a
Sure,
little bit? Okay,
sure.
great. Thanks for taking the time.
No, no problem.
And so here's, I guess, the current layout of it that we have. Now, this is the current layout. Is there a plan for another layout with the I don't see where the shower would go. Is there plans for an alternate layout, or can you walk us through this layout right first and then
Yeah, so that is what we're calling the plus, and then in the amp, it's just the Ascape AMP plus. And that is why we went with this floor plan for the lithium and solar, because as you come in the entry door there from the rear, on the right-hand side, you've got your cassette toilet leading to the cabinet where your EcoFlow system will actually be. And then that butts right up against your dinette benches, which turns into your dinette or sleeping area. So on the left-hand side, as you're entering, that's where your galley's at. So your sink and stove, refrigerator, microwave, all that stuff's going to be on your left-hand side. So that's why we had to go with this floor plan. Usually, if you were walking into that rear entry door in the ST, which has the shower,
oh,
that
they actually say induction cooktop, but that's not the case.
no, I did confirm that this morning. As of right now, they are putting the two burner glass covered stove in there. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure why they didn't drag that into both products, but I
Okay.
did ask Alan that this morning.
Okay.
But yeah, so the ST, when you've got, as you're walking in from the rear on the right hand side, that entire area ends up becoming your shower toilet combination. And that then eliminates the cabinet where the EcoFlow system
Yeah.
currently sits.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, when you're talking about a 10-foot living space by 6 feet wide, like I said, in small lightweight camping, there's always trade-offs.
Yeah, I did notice. I kind of looked at the like the video from I can't remember. It's one of your bigger dealers, and they do walkthroughs of all your campers, and it was kind of amazing, in such a small trailer, how when you step into it, it just feels larger. And then you did have the benefit because it has the higher walls and it doesn't have to collapse where you had a lot of your overhead storage. So that was actually, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it is, and that's the unique thing about the Escape versus a lot of other teardrops. We engineered this so that the floor in the back of it is like it's a dropped floor basically in the back, which gives us a 6'4" standing interior height. Because most teardrops of comparable size are really only going to give you about a 5'8" interior, generally speaking. So that's why we came up with this idea to give people who are taller than 5'8" an opportunity to get in and out of something that still is a teardrop style trailer and still super light. But yeah, I mean for as small of a trailer as it is, again, just like the A-liner to a certain extent, lots of windows, lots of daylight, and then with the extended ceiling height, it does feel bigger than it really is.
Yeah, so I'm showing it right now an image of the area um as you enter the Escape. And so we've
Yep.
got we've got the overhead AC. Now, is that a heat pump? Does that provide heat too, or is that just basically an air conditioner?
So that is just a 9,000 BTU AC, electric AC only. So
Okay.
that's a low profile Coleman. I can't remember which one is a Mach 5 or 9, something like that. But yeah, that's a 9,000 BTU electric AC only. And I know we're going to get there eventually, but we did leave propane on these units specifically to not try and go full electric and put all the burden on the batteries.
Yeah.
And we can get to that in a minute. But yeah, from that rear view there, you can kind of see nice overhead cabinets. You got the cassette toilet there just to the left of the door, your EcoFlow systems in the cabinet to the left of that. And then your galley is really a pretty awesome setup for such a small trailer. You got the glass covered sink and stove. You got the range hood. There's a microwave up there. And then you still keep the 3 cubic foot three-way refrigerator from Dometic is also in there.
Yeah, I really like the combination of the white and gray. I think that looks really, really good. Um, yeah, it looks awesome. And I imagine that air conditioner does a pretty good job of cooling that space as well.
It does. Yeah, that's plenty of AC for such a small trailer. And yeah, that you can see now what we're talking about there. A traditional Escape would have wood cabinets with a wood structure, the linoleum flooring, and a little bit lighter, thinner cushion. But yeah, that high density plastic cabinetry, the white, gray, black combo, I mean, just came out super sharp.
Yeah, I did. Let me pull up the other image real quick. I guess we don't really need to highlight anything else here. The sink looks relatively big and relatively deep too.
It
Uh,
is. Yep. That's a large sink for such a small trailer. That's a pretty deep.
there's a lot of counter space too, because you've got the flat, I guess, cooktop, and so and on the other side above the battery and the EcoFlow system, you have additional kind of counter space over there, and all that overhead storage is just awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Really pretty amazing for such a small trailer.
yeah, I have one of those associations that I can't park anything outside, so yeah,
Yep.
this wouldn't fit in our garage, unfortunately. Let me pull up the other interior. And so this is the shot facing the bed. And then you do have the I guess the LCD screen there. And you have storage underneath the cushions, is that right?
Yeah, so those two large square cushions towards the front of the trailer, just past the dinette benches there,
Okay.
those are hinged and have gas struts under there. So that entire area is open storage, which is a pretty substantial amount of open storage for different items.
Okay.
And yep,
Now,
and then you got,
is that accessible from the outside too?
it's not actually.
Okay.
There's different uh, restrictions. We've got different things in places that there's no baggage door we could find that would fit up there. It would be great if we could get one, but
Okay.
there's no door that we can find right now that we could fit on the side of that.
Okay. And you have a lot of just overhead, looks like overhead storage that is just kind of open where you can pile stuff in there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so you've got a couple cabinets with doors on them, and then you got some open bulk space up across the front of the trailer, and then behind the TV there, all that whole cabinet across the front of the trailer is all open storage in there too. So again, pretty decent amount of storage for a smaller teardrop style trailer.
And then you have propane, you have two tanks on the front of the trailer, is that right?
Yeah, two 20-pounders with the auto changeover, so you got 40 pounds of propane up there, and one tank runs out, it just kicks right over to the next one.
Okay. And you're using that propane quite a bit. So you've got the furnace and then you've got I guess the regular stove top, and then you've got the three-way fridge that can also use the propane as the power source. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it seems like if you're if you're not really in a hot area, that's that EcoFlow system is going to last for quite a while.
That's the thing. Again, it really comes down to air conditioning. And that's why we went with basically a hybrid on this first run. There have been manufacturers who try to go full electric only, but what happens when you don't have sun for 3 or 4 days or whatever the case may be. So yeah, we left the propane system on because, like you said, the furnace, the water heater, the stove top, and even the refrigerator could be run and take off some of that power burden off the battery. So I think it's the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah. Are those is that glass windows on the side, or is that a plastic, or what are
Oh,
those?
those are the thermoplastic plastic windows, but those are really nice. Those crank open from the bottom and they open all the way up, and then there's a nightshade and a screen that pulls up or down. So those give you a ton of ventilation, and then you've got multiple options for just having screens up, or you can pull up the privacy curtains for nighttime.
Um, how does this, how are you guys pricing this in regards to similar kind of teardrop campers? Are you kind of more at the upper end or kind of in the middle, or um
Yeah, so the standard Ascape comes in pretty much in the bulk. If you look at other products out there, there's all kinds of new entrants into the teardrop market these days. But
hmm,
looking at Extreme Outdoors or New Camp or the new mod buggies that you probably have seen out there, we're all in the same general price range. MSRP up there around 30,000. And then anytime you add the lithium and solar, and especially a system as nice as the EcoFlow,
yeah.
that's where the extra money comes in. But most of us are now offering some version of a solar lithium package. So once you get into that realm, yeah, pricing stays pretty consistent. It's relatively similar.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else to do? I've got the I've got the basic version of Zoom, so they knock
Yeah,
me off. They knock me off after 40 minutes or so. Do you
yeah,
have
no,
anything else you want to
I'm
talk about, Chuck?
I'm right there with you. But no, but not much else other than that. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these new products, and they will be out at dealers' lots here. The Ascape run started this week. So the Ascapes will be hitting dealers lots. We're going to run Ascapes through the end of January and through February here. So you'll start seeing Ascape amps on dealers lots between February and March. And yeah, I'd encourage everybody to head out to their local RV show over the next couple of months and check out the A-liners that are out there. We've got the 40th anniversary edition because A-liner is celebrating our 40th year in business this year, which is quite an accomplishment for a small independent company. And yeah, we're looking forward to another great camping season coming up here in a couple of months.
Well, and I heard that the twin bed might be coming back.
Well, we did actually bring the twin bed evolution back. So it's a 15-foot cabin, and we actually had it in Grand Rapids, Michigan last weekend, and we got a ton of good feedback on that
Oh,
because
really? Oh, you actually showed that. That's great.
we did actually. Yeah, that was the first show I got to work with it. But in general, yeah, we do have a twin bed option back. We lost it before COVID or discontinued it during COVID just because trying to be efficient and streamline things. But we brought it back by popular demand.
Yeah, my popularity, I was like, bring it back, bring it back. So yeah, well, that's great. I think maybe we can get together again to talk a little bit about that. That'd be terrific.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Okay. Well, Chuck, thanks again so much for your time,
No
and
problem.
yeah, have fun in Green Bay.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.